The following program contains scenes and language of a frank and explicit nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, and welcome to Film Jitsu, the podcast that wields films like deadly weapons. We are your hosts. I am Jay.
And I am Mike.
On this episode of Film Jitsu, Mike was assigned the cinematic crime scene that is Cool as Ice, a 1991 relic of peak hip-hop hubris. Starring one-hit blunder Vanilla Ice himself, this cash grab gone wrong is every bit as derivative as, lifting the entire melody of a Queen song and changing a single note. Mike will be our reluctant guide as we investigate whether the movie's 3% Rotten Tomatoes rating is too harsh, too generous, or exactly right. He'll also weigh in on whether Vanilla Ice's turn as effortlessly named Johnny Van Owen truly deserves its frequent placement on the worst acting by a musician list. And to that end, we'll actually be counting down our own bottom 5 musicians on film, a list that the rap era Elvis is immunized from since he's in our main review. After that, we'll hit the mailbag to hear from some friendly Eejits who have some thoughts about our recent episodes. And after all of that, Mike will, of course, gleefully assign me my next cinematic punishment as repayment for making him endure 90 minutes of parachute pants and high top fades. But before we get with it, everybody get loose and roll the trailer for a movie that was most certainly not the people's choice, Cool as Ice.
Drop it. What the hell is that? Drop that zero and get with the hero. You are the girl for me. See you later, Dick. It's Nick. Oh, yeah. Nick.
Sometimes I'd like to do something really wild just because I never have.
If you ain't true to yourself, then you ain't true to nobody. Your love can take me higher.
I want you to stay away from him.
He's not what you think he is. My brother's been kidnapped.
What we want, Jim, is a little collection on an old I.O.U. You're the I, and we're the U.
You're all wrong. He didn't do anything.
Come on, get on.
How can you know that, Catherine?
I trust him, Dad.
Vanilla Ice is going to take an uncool world and chill it to the bone.
Well, I hope you like being a biker chick, because you're not going to see me or my car again. Imagine that.
From Universal Pictures, Cool as Ice.
Okay, all right. So my intro to this movie sucked, and I'll own that. I tried to sneak in titles from Cool as Ice's soundtrack.
Oh, did
But let's
How
be
would
honest.
anybody know? How would you know?
Outside of Ice Ice Baby and maybe Ninja Rap, shout out to TMNT2, The Secret of the U.
Yes, that's right.
Would anybody actually remember anything else that Vanilla Ice has done other than those 2 tracks? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. The only other thing I know
exactly.
about him, aside from Ninja Turtles and this movie, is I'm pretty sure that the guy from Different Strokes punched him in the face in a celebrity boxing match one time. That I might have even made up. I'm not even sure.
Well, that explains just how much he really did in his 15 minutes of fame.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He managed to, during that time, make a truckload of money, date Madonna, and somehow headline a feature-length music video disguised as a movie.
Uh-huh.
A movie, I might add, that reportedly blends Rebel Without a Cause with early 90s white boy hip-hop.
It's a little like Rebel Without a Cause, but what this film is ultimately is a long sequence of montages, one after the other.
Yeah.
To the extent that it's like a montage of montages at a certain point. And it's really easy to lose track of what this movie is about, which is that as best I can tell, Vanilla Ice and Johnny, I'm impressed that you figured out the last
Johnny
name.
Van Owen.
Great, yeah. Rolls into town with what I can only describe as like hip-hop motorcycle troubadours.
White boy motorcycle posse.
It seems like they travel from town to town on these crotch rocket motorcycles, and they just happen to break down in the burbs one day.
Mm-hmm.
And Vanilla Ice sets his sights on the first female of the species that he finds, nearly kills her in an equestrian accident, and then from there, it's all just a matter of her falling for the bad boy, even though her father, played by Michael Gross, will have none of it.
Michael Gross.
Yeah. And her boyfriend, who is just, like typical country club boyfriend, generic asshole in a movie.
Yes, Nick, I hear
Nick,
his name is.
Nick,
Nick.
Nick, right? The guy's name is Nick. We got a movie where we're doing a lot of rapping in the movie. It's amazing that the boyfriend's name wasn't like Roosh Bag. But okay, fine. So this is Nick, the dick, the boyfriend.
Okay.
And what the movie ends up being is like this fucking hip-hop Harry and the Hendersons, where some goddamn monster who's never seen civilization before rolls into town and starts messing up the suburbs. That's what this movie is.
I thought it was more like Footloose, but I like yours much better.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of Footloose, except in Footloose,
way more Harry and the Hendersons.
In Footloose, you're not supposed to dance, right? There's no dancing allowed. In this movie, it is just Michael Gross and the boyfriend desperately trying to prevent Vanilla Ice from fucking the girl. That's it. Because they all know what's going to happen. Because every sequence in this movie, were it another kind of movie, there would be a sex scene in the movie. Like, I know that sometimes I make this claim about movies and it can be a little tired, but this is kind of like a porno where they forgot to do the fucking. And because we go from one sequence, like they ride together on the motorcycle, like Days of Thunder style, and then they should park it and have sex. And then they go to an abandoned construction site where they should definitely have sex. They go to her bedroom where they should it's Playboy film after Playboy film.
Well, that's interesting because the director used to make Playboy films.
And it shows like you wouldn't believe. It's like he doesn't know how to
really.
It's like he doesn't know how to make a movie otherwise. So it's just like, okay, so I think this is where the sex happens, but instead of having the sex, let's just go to the next scene.
I think it's really interesting that director David Kellogg actually disowned the film. So this was even beneath a guy who shot music videos for a living and then made Playboy spank bank videos.
Who does he think he is exactly?
Yeah, right.
What does disowning a film mean? What do we? I declare bankruptcy. What are we doing?
I think he wanted to actually have his possessory credit removed from the film.
Yeah. Well, okay.
I think it probably had something to do with the fact that it only opened in 393 theaters. Mm-hmm. And it took in $1.2 million on a $6 million budget.
Yeah.
So it was already a pretty low budget. They were getting in at a low rate with this thing, expecting a high return. Instead, they lost money. I think he just dropped out right after that. David Kellogg.
David Kellogg's directing credit is not even kind of close to the most interesting credit on this movie.
Oh, I know.
Not by 1 billion miles.
Not by there's no way in a million years that you could have guessed what you're about to tell me.
This information is the kind of thing, like, our dear listeners, pay attention. Because there may come a day where you are on Jeopardy and this information wins you an incredible sum of money. You want to make a bar bet, here it is. Because the cinematographer for Cool as Ice is the same cinematographer as Schindler's List.
That's correct. All of Spielberg's movies just about, from Schindler's List on, have been shot by Janusz Kaminski. Not only that, but I want you to take this bit of knowledge in. Cool as Ice was shot in April of 1991.
Okay.
Principal photography for Schindler's List started in March of 1993.
Wow.
Less than 2 years later, Kaminski went from DPing this piece of dog shit to working for Spielberg on what is arguably his most important film.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, for sure. That's what he did.
How?
Yeah. Well, amazingly, as terrible as this movie is as a film,
yes,
it kind of looks incredible, as if perhaps Janusz Kaminski made the movie. I'm like, why? There's something about this movie that is not making me insane. And I'm like, the directing isn't competent. The acting isn't even acting. So like, what is working for me? Holy shit, this is inexplicably kind of great looking. And I looked it up and my mind just fell out of my head. I couldn't even believe it. How's that for a dueling double bill, Jason? Cool as Ice and Schindler's List. Holy shit. It's not the only connection to classic cinema that this film has, because also when Vanilla Ice rolls into town and they break their motorcycles, they have to take it to the town's kooky mechanic, who is played by Sidney Lassick Cheswick from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Crazy.
This poor man is in this movie in the weirdest thing I've ever seen. It's not a garage. It's like an open concept Pee-wee's Playhouse where him and I think his wife fix motorcycles for free, because I don't know a lot about the economics of mechanicry, Jason. I don't.
Okay.
I don't know how much you charge to fix a motorcycle. I have no idea how much you would expect to pay to have your motorcycle fixed. What I do know is that housing a random roving group of hip hop artists in your home, eating your food and shit while you're fixing their bike, cannot be a wash. There's no way. This guy must have spent an insane amount of money for Vanilla Ice and Deezer D to live at his house for a while he works on the motorcycle. It doesn't make any sense.
You know what else doesn't make sense with this? Naomi Campbell is in this fucking movie.
I mean, Naomi Campbell
feature-length movie debut.
Yeah, but you know what it is? Naomi Campbell is in this movie far less significantly than Drew Barrymore in Scream. So, yeah. She's there for a second.
What was that all about?
Forget him. I already have.
It's like someone farted in a 90s themed time capsule and I had to open it. That's what it is. I think it's important. I want to just set the table here to let everybody know the circumstances under which I watched the film. That's always something that interests me because, you know, I'm always interested in the Movie Tubi, Freevee, whatever thing, right? So I went looking for where can I watch Cool as Ice? And I could buy the movie for $3.99.
Okay.
Fuck you, Jason Santo. That's my $3.99.
Yeah,
I'm not doing that.
Right.
What I did instead was I found it on Tubi under Riff Tracks.
Oh.
And so I listened to the Riff Tracks episode about Cool as Ice, where funny people also had to watch this movie and make fun of it in real time. So I found a way to have a good time watching a really shitty movie.
Wow, that's a big cheat.
It's a big cheat.
You didn't raw dog it.
No,
you went in with a condom.
I did. Yeah, I did. Yeah, that's right.
The cinematic equivalent of a condom.
I sure did.
Tracks.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
I sure
did. Really, really, really disingenuous. Wow.
Yes.
I don't even think that counts, but okay. I mean, wow.
Yep. That was my best choice, was to watch it with Riff Tracks. I was like, that's it. Jason Santo, in the epic back and forth battle, right? Like sometimes you show up with a sword and sometimes you show up with a shield. This was an episode where I showed up with a shield. And I got to tell you, as much fun as a Riff Tracks episode was, it didn't do me any favors because god damn it, is this a bad film. The opening credits are already the most Vanilla Ice I've ever listened to. So we've just made it through the opening. It means that we've made it through the opening credits, and I have listened to so much more Vanilla Ice than I ever had in my entire life before that.
The guy who's memorized Ice Ice Baby word for word all the way through?
Yeah, but I know that and nothing else. But now I'm listening to the opening credits, so now I have doubled the amount of Vanilla Ice in my brain.
Vanilla Ice intake.
And so we hop from kind of one poor excuse to perform hip hop to another. Having not a whole lot to do with anything. And then at the very end of the movie, somebody is like, hey, I think a movie is supposed to have a plot. And somebody's like, oh, okay. Well, what should the plot be? And they're like, what if the dad is in witness protection.
I know.
And the corrupt cops are coming to get him.
Yeah.
And they're going to kidnap the little boy, the son.
Tommy.
And you're like, okay, what does that have to do with Vanilla Ice's character? And they're like, oh, not a thing. Not one thing.
It's just a whole other movie.
Can you imagine as a father being like, okay, I'm going to work really hard to make sure my daughter doesn't get banged by Vanilla Ice, but it's really hard to keep tabs on things because the corrupt cops are trying to steal my boy for some reason. This guy's got it coming and going. No matter what you do, you lose. And so instead what we have is it kind of devolves into like a bunch of checked boxes at the end of the thing, right? Karate fight scene, check. A montage of montages, check. We got horseback riding and spraying each other with hoses and barren desert dry humping and an obvious Top Gun motorcycle ripoff. It's got all of the things that you would need to have in a 90s themed movie. And then we get to the end of it and we're like, well, whatever came of that kidnapping plot? And they're like, nah, nothing. We just kind of got the kid back. And you're like, okay, that's it.
God.
There's one fist fight and that's the end of the movie.
Good heavens. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I guess it's not surprising that it was nominated for 11 Golden Raspberry Awards in 6 categories, but it won in only one, which was Worst New Star, which Ice won against co-star Kristen Mintner.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? She was fine. This movie is basically, Jay, what it should have been.
Yeah.
Is Karate Kid is what it should have been. Where this guy rolls into town and there's a girl who's dating the cool kid in town and she has eyes for the hero and she wants to get with him and there should be a fight and this movie inexplicably does not have is any kind of showdown between Vanilla Ice and the boyfriend. Like there should have been a battle of the bands or something. There should have been they should have had a rap battle, like an 8 Mile style. Something should have happened. Nothing. Just at the end, she's like, I think I'll go with Vanilla Ice. And I'm not kidding. Slow motion jumps his motorcycle like over the boyfriend's car and drives out of town.
Do you know who was supposed to play that girl?
I think a lot of people were up for it. I know kind of most notoriously, Gwyneth Paltrow was in the running. And her dad told her not to do it.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. And so instead...
I'd say that's good time to listen to dad. There.
Yeah, right. I mean, if this movie taught me anything, is that this is a lesson in being a good father. Because you either tell your daughter not to be in Cool as Ice, or you spend the entire runtime of Cool as Ice trying to tell your daughter not to have sex with Vanilla Ice, which is always good advice, right?
Right.
So...
while trying to save your son from corrupt cops.
For a minute.
Where you been?
Chilling with Kat. You know, the chick who drives the horse.
Oh, now you got her name.
No, check this out. I got me more than that, G. Little black book.
Oh, really?
Oh, that's great. That's very great.
Looky in Kat's black bookie.
Vanilla Ice, at the time, was the highest selling rap artist of all time.
Is that real?
Yes. Shot onto the scene with his debut and became the #1 selling rap artist of all time because of Ice Ice Baby.
That's disgusting.
If ever anyone wants to talk about inherent bias or the fact that white people have a leg up in this world, look no further than Robert Matthew Van Winkle.
And yet got what he deserved at the end because this guy's legacy is a fucking punchline. Can you imagine? I mean, he's such a punchline.
But the most interesting story that I think we have about Vanilla Ice is the fact that were it not for him, there wouldn't have been a Death Row Records because Suge Knight basically shook him down for a co-credit to be applied to one of his artists so that they made half the money off of Ice Ice Baby. And apparently he went up to Vanilla Ice's hotel room that was on the 15th floor and threatened to throw him off the balcony if he didn't sign over those rights.
I love that.
So without Vanilla Ice, no Death Row, no Dre, no Snoop, no Tupac.
It all worked out in the long run, I suppose. You know what you haven't done, though, Jay, as we close out this conversation?
What?
You didn't ask me whether or not I liked the movie.
You can't possibly have liked this movie, Mike. Mike. Was it because of riff tracks?
No.
Mike.
No. This movie was almost everything you would want in a movie to make fun of a movie. Like, if you're the kind of person who likes putting on a bad movie and goofing on it with your friends, look no further. As I was watching this movie, and Riff Tracks was very funny, and I was enjoying Riff Tracks making fun of the movie, all I could think was, God damn it, I wish I was watching this with Santo right now.
Yeah, right.
It would have been such a good time to put this on and watch it
agree.
together. So
it's like The Room. It's like one of those ones where it's so bad it just needs somebody to sit with and joke and laugh. Yeah.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Mike, I had suspected that with this bottom 5, which is the bottom 5 musicians on film, is what I'm calling it, you would struggle. And the reason why is because you have on several different occasions pinpointed musicians as being the failing part of a film, and have thus ended up on your bottom 5.
The real problem I had here was accepting the premise, because what is required is that I accept that Vanilla Ice qualifies as a musician.
I know.
So
I know.
Of all of the movies in the world where we're going to accept that this is a musician to begin with, I mean, fine, have it your way.
Fair.
Just before we started recording, I realized that I was concerned that maybe I had interpreted this bottom 5 entirely the wrong way, because there's two ways you could look at it.
Okay.
You could look at it with musicians in movies, as in real world musicians who took on an acting role.
Yes.
Or you could have looked at it as musicians in movies, characters who are musicians.
Yes. Right. You could.
And I wish that I had done that. I think I would have had a better list for that. So I did struggle a little bit. I went the more traditional route. I'm curious which way you went with your list. What did you mean, I guess, in the first place? I should have asked clarifying questions. And then, so which direction did you go, and what is your number 5?
Yeah, I went 100% in the expected way, as I always do. So my number 5 is Caveman from 1981. And have you ever even heard of this film?
It's Ringo Starr, right? I've never seen it. I've never seen it.
Oh my God. It's fucking terrible.
Yeah. Okay, fair.
I first saw it as a kid on HBO. It was one of those early cable flicks that it just gained traction in my young, impressionable brain for no other reason than it was on constantly. But despite its repeated exposure, the one scene that was permanently burned in my memory beyond anything else involved a group of cavemen rooting around in a giant mud pit. And then another tribesman wanders over and points and just shouts, "Poop!" That's what watching Caveman is like. In essence, Caveman is a movie that, like its characters, is crude, dumb, and barely evolved. Right?
Okay.
But, okay, so it does earn this place on its list thanks to Ringo Starr. And yes, we are talking about Ringo Starr from the Beatles, arguably the most influential band maybe of all time. And Ringo plays this guy named Atok, a mild-mannered Neanderthal who is in love with Lana. Barbara Bach plays her. And by the way, that's Starr's future wife, so that's interesting. And then at some point, he just suddenly decides that he likes Shelley Long's Tala better. And I'm not sure why, maybe because she's blonde or nice or whatever. Also, Dennis Quaid is in this in a very early role, and football star turned actor John Matuzak, Sloth from the Goonies.
Yeah.
He's in this too. as well as a curiously clueless Burgess Meredith. Now, I have to be fair here, Mike. This isn't entirely Ringo's fault. He's bad for sure, but Caveman is a cinematic landfill of awful decisions from concept to execution. If anything, Starr is almost charming in his goofiness. He's just stuck in a movie that treats Cavemen Fall Down as its highest form of comedy.
Oh, boy.
So the real crime for him is he said yes. He read the script, saw the poop jokes, the slapstick nonsense, and the caveman gibberish and thought, yes, this is my leading man moment. And I think that's enough to earn him number 5.
Oh, such a Ringo.
It is film jitsu fodder for sure.
All right. Well,
for sure.
Well, my number 5, let's just say that the musician in my number 5 does not hold the same place in the halls of music history as perhaps the Beatles do. Certainly not.
Or Vanilla Ice.
Or Vanilla Ice although we're getting a lot closer because my number 5 is Jessica Simpson as Daisy Duke in the 2005, for some reason, Johnny Knoxville film adaptation of The Dukes of Hazzard.
You better be reading my name tag, friend.
I noticed your initials were double D.
How about special, sir?
Everyone involved in this film, everyone, should be sentenced to jail time. Who in 2005 was clamoring for a film adaptation of a 1970s Good Old Boys Driving Around Georgia television show, only this time with Stifler in it? And Jessica Simpson makes my list because she's less an actor and more like a live action mannequin in the movie.
Yeah, that's fair.
We all know, right? She's number 5. We all know she wasn't cast for her acting skills or her reading skills or her speaking out loud skills. It was the ass in the shorts. And look, if the Academy of Arts and Sciences ever creates an ass in the shorts category, Jessica Simpson in 2005 would be the Meryl Streep of that award. But since they haven't, and since she isn't, the best I can do is award her the number 5 spot on my list. But don't just take my word for it, because she also earned a Razzie nomination for the role, proving that a bikini is not an acting coach. Jessica Simpson, number 5.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess in my mind, the Oscars are definitely given to Best Button Shorts. So
maybe we'll add this to the Jitsus.
To the Jitsus?
Yeah, the ass in the shorts.
Not
award.
a bad idea. I like it.
I'm still going to give it to Mario Van Peebles.
My number 4 is Free Jack from 1992. Free Jack's one of those early 90s sci-fi quote thrillers that felt as though it was warning us against the dangers of computers and virtual reality and technology, and instead it ended up being a warning about casting Mick Jagger as a villain.
Oh, right. This is Jagger. Okay. All right.
Mick Jagger.
Yeah.
The premise is time-traveling mercenaries steal people from the past seconds before they die, only to sell their bodies to rich people who want a new lease on life.
Right.
That's a great fucking concept.
It sure is.
It's from Ronald Shusett, right? From Total Recall and Alien. You know, like he's one of these guys that really is big in sci-fi. But it's just made super duper dumb because it features Mick Jagger as a character named Victor Vasendak, a ruthless bounty hunter who chases Emilio Estevez across a dystopian future. So, you know, that's where Free Jack pretty much falls apart, because Mick Jagger is not a villain. He's Mick Jagger pretending to be a villain. There's a big difference.
You can't see him and just see anything other than, well, that's Mick Jagger.
Those
He's
giant
too
lips.
famous. He's just too famous.
It's the lips. It's the lips. He kept talking and the lips kept moving and I couldn't hear anything he was saying. I was just like, I'm lost. This is a very complex movie with a very complex storyline and lots of action. By the way, he does not look good running either. It's like he's on an SNL skit as a villain.
Yeah.
And I felt as though he was looking at cue cards off to the side periodically just to check where he is.
I'm wondering if this is one of those kind of movies that actually might really benefit from a remake now.
Yes, right? Exactly. Take the concept, put the correct people in the movie.
Yeah.
And then go with it. Right. Absolutely. Like Donald Glover, maybe, instead. Right? As the villain.
Could we give it to Rian Johnson to direct, like a Looper kind of thing, right?
Like a Looper type.
Yeah.
Better than Looper, I bet.
Yeah.
I bet it would be better. Looper wasn't that great. But anyway, the director, Jeff Murphy, had actually worked with Emilio Estevez before on Young Guns 2.
Mm-hmm.
He had previously made this film called I.O.U. He's a New Zealander, and the film was an anti-colonialism film that played really well at Cannes. You just have to wonder how he went from I.O.U. to Free Jack. But then you think about it, and we're still doing this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Look at Chloe Zhao, who did Nomadland, but then did The Eternals.
Right.
Or Barry Jenkins, who just did Mufasa.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, what are we doing here? How do you go from Moonlight to Mufasa? How do you go from Nomadland to The Eternals? How do you go from I.O.U. to Free Jack? Wow, Hollywood. Good God.
Well, I think we're going to refer back to Michael Caine from your beloved Jaws the Revenge, which is, I didn't see the movie, but I did see the house that it paid for, right?
Fair enough.
So,
fair enough.
There you go. Well, Jay, I wouldn't have expected in a list where we were talking about musicians, we would have picked on the Rolling Stones twice, and yet here we are.
No.
Because my number 4 is Keith Richards in Pirates of the Caribbean on Stranger Tides for being such an enormous, stupid, wouldn't it be funny distraction in an already worn out its welcome franchise. Now, famously, Johnny Depp based his entire performance as Jack Sparrow on Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones as being sort of a constantly inebriated cad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when the word got out that Johnny Depp had based his performance on Keith Richards, ooh boy, the whole world just couldn't wait to see if we could get Keith Richards into one of these movies. We were all excited about this thing, right? And Keith Richards did end up in At World's End, a previous sequel, in a small cameo that kind of scratched that itch, right? They got him in the movie.
Sure.
There he was.
Good
it
enough.
was the Easter egg. We all got to go kind of okay. But this franchise has zero idea what too much of a good thing is. And so,
I heard you're putting together a crew.
If enough people keep saying it, it must be true.
I heard where you're headed. The fountain.
Have you been there?
Does this face look like it's been to the fountain of youth?
Depends on the light.
It's just such an eye roll. Like, we get it, movie. We got it the last time, too. Keith Richards isn't an actor. In fact, he's barely a human being. And so he's my number 4 for just like being all over this fucking Pirates of the Caribbean movie. Like, enough already.
Absolutely. And I think it's really important that so far we've picked on the Beatles and the Rolling Stones.
Exclusively.
Here we go. Well, we're gonna definitely move far away from the Beatles and the Rolling Stones now. Man, I'm sorry. From Justin to Kelly.
Yeah. You doing it?
Wow, dude. Kelly Clarkson, she might be one of the best pop vocalists of her generation, but in From Justin to Kelly, she proves that her acting ability falls somewhere between Hostage in a Ransom video and cardboard cutout of herself.
So wait a second. We're kind of bending a rule a little bit here, right?
A little bit.
We did a whole review.
Okay.
So
all right.
this is interesting.
If you're this mad at me
for
I'm not looking somewhere other than a Film Jitsu movie, blame yourself, because I can't do Madonna, even though she's a train wreck in just about every movie she's acted in, with the exception of Desperately Seeking Susan, A League of Her Own, and Dick Tracy.
Yeah.
There's 3 decent performances out of 20 plus acting roles.
Yeah.
Good God. But, I'm such a homer for Madonna that I simply have to keep her off this list. So it's fucking Kelly Clarkson.
I wish we had talked about this ahead of time, because I 1,000% would have put Gene Simmons on my list from Runaway. He would have been there. I'm calling it audible. He's on my list. Keith Richards is off my list. My number 4, now that we've opened up this avenue, is Gene Simmons in Runaway. Absolutely. As Luther, the evil guy. Okay, fair is fair.
You know what's funny is 8 years before Free Jack, Gene Simmons proved that this shouldn't happen, that this doesn't work. And yet they still tried. It shows that Hollywood just does not look at history. It just keeps making the same mistakes. Incredible stuff. Is it Kelly Clarkson? Is it Madonna at my number 3? I have no idea. I don't really care. Fuck it. Let's move on. What's your number 2? What's my number 2? Who's next?
It's my turn. It's my number 3. Oh, Marky Mark.
Oh, God.
Your bunch was so funky. Your vibrations were so good. But your turn towards acting proves that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. You've tried so hard. Marky Mark, you even came close a time or two. The Departed, Boogie Nights. But for every The Fighter, there's a slate of Daddy's Home and Planets of the Apes and 2 separate Transformers movies.
Oof.
Marky Mark gives us way more misses than hits. And nothing exemplifies that to me as much as the video game adaptation Max Payne from 2008.
Oof.
Directed by the visionary filmmaker that gave us A Good Day to Die Hard and the absolutely pointless remake of The Omen with Julia Stiles and Liev Schreiber, this is barely a film. Just barely a film. But it highlights what happens when a human Dunkin' Donuts cup trades in his music career to become an actor. You end up with this friggin' beefy meathead. At least if Marky Mark had stayed in his lane, we would have been able to get rid of him in the early 90s, but instead we got The Happening. So awesome. Marky Mark, fuck that guy.
Oh my God. It's so funny. You brought up so much rage about me calling Vanilla Ice a musician, and then you're like, well, Marky Mark.
I mean, I'm just going off your working definition.
Off my rules, I guess.
That's right.
Yeah, I guess you didn't really mind that much if you were going to end up throwing him on your list. So, all right. Somehow, and I won't ever understand why or how, Jet Li was cast alongside the rapper DMX in not one, but 2 movies around the turn of the millennium, and both were hip-hop Hong Kong-style action flicks directed by veteran cinematographer Andrei Barkowiak, perhaps best known as the shooter of Speed, Falling Down, and The Devil's Advocate.
Oh.
Jesus H. Christ. So you got an amazing guy behind the camera, an incredible martial arts artist and actor with gravitas in front of the camera, and DMX.
What?
Who in Romeo Must Die plays Silk, a nightclub owner, and then he gets an expanded role as co-lead in Cradle 2, number 2, The Grave.
Cradle Dose the Grave.
A character named Anthony Fate, who is a diamond thief.
Wait a minute. His character's name is Anthony Fate?
Anthony Fate.
This is unbelievable, and I can't wait to tell you why.
All I can say is that this guy may have sold 74 million records, but he couldn't convincingly sell 74 seconds as a tough guy in either film. As far as things go, the movies are enjoyable enough, although the X-ray clips that illustrate the damage done by Jet Li's martial arts in Romeo Must Die are comically absurd, as is the hilarious moment in Cradle when DMX runs about 10 feet up a wall and does a backflip to outwit a chasing Doberman.
Oh.
But truly the worst thing DMX does in these films is open his mouth, proving that, quote, a man needs to know his limitations, as the good Clint Eastwood once said.
DMX, rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
No disrespect, sir, but you were a terrible actor.
That's for sure. Anthony Fate, huh? Maybe there's something to this because my number 2 is a character whose name is Jack Fate.
Get the fuck out of here.
Jack Fate. I'm not kidding you.
As fate would have it.
As fate would have it. There
Good
we are.
Heavens.
Now,
wow.
He may be a living legend, a 10-time Grammy winner,
Ooh.
a Nobel Prize winner,
what?
An Oscar winner, and the current subject of a Best Picture nominee.
Oh, that's right.
But Bob Dylan is certainly no actor.
No, not even in a little bit.
It's why he hasn't done it very often.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a lot of acting credits. And on the occasion that he has been in a movie, he has been outstandingly dreadful.
Yes.
I challenge you to watch Dylan in the film Masked and Anonymous from 2003. He basically plays a fictionalized version of himself. It's just this rambling, philosophical nonsense script that hopes it will sound legitimate if the words are coming out of Bob Dylan's mouth. That doesn't work. And in fact, it just highlights that for all of his contributions to the Great American Songbook, he is a mortal man who cannot fucking act.
I was always a singer, and maybe no more than that. Sometimes it's not enough to know the meaning of things. Sometimes we have to know what things don't mean as well. Like, what does it mean to not know what the person you love is capable of?
Oh my God. So good. Well, we're down to my number 1. And did you know there was a sequel to Purple Rain? Yeah. Was it necessary? No, it was in no way necessary. Is it worse? Yeah, it's 100% worse.
It would have
especially
to be.
in the acting department, where Prince, doubling as director and star, seems to be competing with Morris Day for the gold medal in ham-fisted overacting. Somehow, Graffiti Bridge from 1990 is a movie where everything got worse. The acting, the script, the cinematography, and most importantly, the sense of purpose. Where Purple Rain was at least semi-autobiographical and fueled by Prince's meteoric rise, Graffiti Bridge is a self-indulgent, neon-lit fever dream that feels like a bad poetry slam stretched into a feature film. The plot, and of course I use that term very loosely, finds Prince reprising his role as the Kid, now the owner of a club that's under threat from Morris Day, who runs a rival club and wants to take over the Kid's venue. But instead of feeling like a worthy continuation of Purple Rain, it plays out like an overlong music video, one that makes, I don't know, Moonwalker look like fucking Citizen Kane. The dialogue is stilted, the pacing is a mess. Every scene that isn't a performance sequence feels like it was shot on a soundstage that someone, forgot to finish building. Prince's acting, if we can call it that, is weirdly restrained in some moments and completely off the rails in others. He somehow manages to overthink and underact simultaneously, often staring off into space as if trying to will the movie into something coherent.
Okay.
But it never gets there. Morris Day, meanwhile, delivers lines as if he just realized he was in a sequel and is actively trying to get fired. So, look, it was a race between these two. I didn't know which one to pick. But since Prince wrote it, directed, and starred in it, it went to him.
Okay.
It was nominated for 5 Golden Raspberry Awards, with Prince getting nominated specifically for Worst Actor, Worst Director, and Worst Screenplay. So there you go.
Hat trick. A hat trick.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
impressed.
A hat trick. Right, exactly. And they were all deserved, quite frankly. It wasn't just a letdown. It was a fucking catastrophe. It tarnishes Purple Rain's legacy, and it proves that Prince, for all of his undeniable genius as a musician, like Bob Dylan, should never have been handed full creative control over a film.
Yeah. I've never seen it. I didn't even know this existed.
Graffiti Bridge?
Yeah, I've never seen. I didn't even.
Yeah.
Nope, this is news to me.
It is a fucking mistake.
Well, I'm going to try to make a segue into this next thing. And when something is my number one, I'm like, should I have had that earlier in my list? Because I don't want to conclude the segment with this, but here we are all the same, because it's not going to take much convincing that this is a number one. Because this musician, and again, this is sort of in the Marky Mark vein here, only has 10 acting credits to his name, 4 of which he's playing himself. And he can't even do that right. We're talking credits that range from Muppets Most Wanted to Get Him to the Greek. I'm talking about Sean P. Diddy Combs.
Ooh, I didn't know he was in any. I'd never even, wow.
If an actor's number one role is himself, and himself is fucking P. Diddy, then yeah, he's my number one worst musician turned actor.
That's fair. Yeah.
Game over. Game over.
Game over. No, I get it. I totally understand that. Yeah.
I'm sorry to have concluded this segment on P. Diddy. That's I didn't mean to do that. Sometimes you
know what? His appearances in films, if I'm remembering correctly, sort of are like Donald Trump's sort of weird appearances in films that he would make. It's
That's
like,
right.
oh, look at that guy. He's a fucking clown.
Right. That rich clown showed up.
Yeah.
And
so
acted
when do
like
we
an
elect
asshole.
P. Diddy as president? Is that coming up soon?
We don't have
that
elections
must be,
anymore.
right?
No, we don't have them anymore. Yeah.
Oh, we don't have presidents.
No, that's
anymore.
it.
No elections anymore.
Nope.
Oh, got it. All right.
Yep.
Not even for convicted pedophiles?
I think they get a cabinet position almost immediately.
It's exactly what the founding fathers wanted. Mike, did you know the show actually has a few listeners?
The bribes are working. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, the checks are working. They're actually starting to comment on social media. And recently, our last episode, in fact, about our bottom 5 childhood traumas that accompanied the Return to Oz episode created quite a bit of discussion online. So many people agreed not only with the idea that Return to Oz was pure nightmare fuel, but also that it was a pretty doggone good movie. In fact, Aaron Malloy Parker actually wrote, Jason, why have we not spoken of this cult classic? I finally feel seen. Return to Oz has been on repeat for me every day since I was 8. Now, I am assuming that's hyperbole. If not, we might have to look in on our friend Erin.
She needs an intervention.
She says, I still watch it anytime I'm homesick because by the time Dorothy finds TikTok, ask any zillennial to name where the name of that app came from, and winds them up before being attacked by the Wheelers, I'm out cold. Now, I don't know that that's an endorsement, really. It sounds like she both loves this movie, but also finds it painfully boring. Or is it comforting because she's sick? I'm not sure.
It sounds like she can only watch it in the midst of a fever dream, which is what that film is to begin with. Like the best way, maybe the method approach of watching Return to Oz is to fry your brain, just like poor little Dorothy in the nut house, and then
your
watch
own
the movie.
Electroshock therapy.
Yeah.
Got it.
That might be it.
Erin concludes with, Princess Mombi is a grade A bitch, but I'll admit she was a brilliant businesswoman.
Yeah, I love this take from Erin, actually. Thinking about, like, you know what? Let's throw a little respect that woman's way, right? Like, she is a businesswoman in a man's world, and we got to at least respect that.
Absolutely. Erica Plant chimed in with, I just showed it to the girls a few weeks ago. They found the Wheelers very disturbing. So there you go. It's still out there. Sarah Fortin chimes in, love, all caps, Return to Oz. Bianca Soto, loved it as a kid. Holy hand grenades, Mike. A lot of people given some good love for Return to Oz. But then my good buddy Mark Bennett, who works in Hollywood as a casting director, go ahead, check his IMDb. You'll shit egg rolls. He said, I didn't see Return to Oz until I was an adult, and I also like it. So, man, we are really seeing some love for this film.
Yeah, for sure.
I was only really traumatized as a child by the adult movies I saw that I was too young to be viewing. Like when my father let me watch The Exorcist when I was still in grade school, which scarred me for life. But I do remember being, if not traumatized, at least upset by the violence in Watership Down and creeped out by the Skeksis in The Dark Crystal,
right?
Which was also on my list,
there
right?
You go.
He also loved when the Henson people went dark. I assume there's some of your Labyrinth love there.
Yeah.
Mark then added to his comment, oh, wait, I may have spoken too soon. I just remembered the scene in the never-ending story with Artax in the swamp. Ellipses. How the fuck did we not remember that?
Yeah, our listeners did a really good job of reminding us of all of the really dark stuff that we have repressed from our memories, because they mentioned so many good ones that we never got around to. Yeah. Your beloved mystical horse slowly drowning in quicksand of depression. Holy shit. And I have a memory of that I forgot until this feedback came in, because when this movie came out, I think there was some sort of like town hall meeting or something happening at the junior high school where I grew up. And my mom went to the meeting, and the kids, if you had to have like childcare, they had that all worked out. They had the auditorium open or something, and they were showing this film. They were showing the never-ending story.
Right.
And I remember seeing this scene, being deeply disturbed by that, wanting to go find my mom, but they wouldn't let me like break into the town hall meeting. So it was like these adults that I didn't know were like restricting me from going to find my mom.
Gatekeepers. Oh
after
my God.
I had just experienced the goddamn horse drowning in its literal sorrow. I was like, okay, well, so that's a memory that's just been rattling around in my disturbed dome until this day. So I'm glad that I'm dealing with that, I guess, in real time.
Thanks a lot, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
The final comment that I wanted to read was from Abby Langdon. I love the movie Return to Oz. I think the score here is just unanimous at this point. People love this movie. I'm feeling really good about this, honestly.
I am too, because this was a lot of the reason why I gave you the film. It wasn't I was giving you a bad film. This was a movie that I had so many questions about, like where it stood for people.
Yeah,
and
sure.
All of this feedback has been really enlightening, and it does seem like, just like you, people do like the film, but boy, did it toy with their mind a little bit.
Yeah. Poor Walter Murch. Anyway, I love the movie Return to Oz. It was one of my favorites as a kid. Childhood trauma movie, also from 1985, The Peanut Butter Solution.
Michael's a normal boy in an abnormal position.
You had a little accident.
You had yourself some sort of extraordinary fright.
Michael, where's your hair? I'm bald.
The proper medical term is harum scarum.
What a loony.
Now, he's got one hairy problem. And he's about to find a solution.
You can't just come into our house, can you?
Ghosts can go anywhere.
In the least likely place you'd think.
Here's old Charlie's recipe.
A jar of peanut butter.
Don't use too much of it or watch out.
See the peanut butter solution.
The peanut butter solution?
Yeah.
It sounds like vaguely like
a Judy Blume book to me.
Like,
something
yeah, but like
that.
if Judy Blume wrote something about Nazis, like the peanut butter.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I don't know. It's got like Final Solution vibes that make me uncomfortable. I'm not here for that. The peanut butter solution seems there's something really sort of like dark and threatening about a title like that. I don't know. It makes me uneasy.
It was nice to see messages in the mailbag this week. Thanks so much for all of them. Please reach out to us if you have any comments on this episode with Bottom 5 musicians. Let us know who they are. We'd love to talk about it on the show and hear your thoughts. You can email us at j@filmjitsu.net or mike@filmjitsu.net, or you can reach out to us on our variety of socials. We do, for the time being, still have Facebook, Threads, and Instagram, but all of that might go away and we might just be Blue Sky soon. So we'll see what happens with that.
You can get us on Slim Jim Plus or wherever the fuck we're going to be pretty soon. Jay, it is the time in the show where I reveal what film you're going to be watching for our next episode.
Okay.
Payback for Cool as Ice.
Cool as Ice was payback for the fucking thumbs.
Okay. All right. Well, then I'm starting a whole other problem because what if I told you there was a movie that had Danny Trejo in it?
Okay.
MMA fighter Tito Ortiz in it.
That doesn't mean anything to me. Okay.
David Boreanaz, who I think is that Buffy guy.
He's Angel in Bones.
That's
like
okay. Great.
Okay.
Macy Gray, the one-time singer. Uh-huh.
Wow. All right.
Tara Reid.
Oh no. Oh God. We're going to a bowl, aren't we?
And a legendary Hollywood treasure, Dennis Hopper.
Okay. So it's not, I don't know what this is.
Because I haven't yet given you the lead in the film. Jay, did you ever watch The Crow with Brandon Lee?
Of course I did, yeah.
Kind of heck of a film.
It was all right. I own the original comics.
Okay, great. Yeah, there you go. So you know that they recently made a sequel, right? Not like a remake?
No, not a sequel. Like a reboot.
Like a reboot, like a reheat?
Yeah, reboot.
They did that, yeah. It would be fun to make you watch that, but that's not this.
No, that's that guy that played Pennywise there, the Skarsgård kid.
Yeah. Brandon Lee played the Crow.
Yeah.
Skarsgård played the Crow.
Yeah.
Well, in 2005, Jay, in the 4th installment in the Crow series, The Crow, Wicked Prayer.
Oh.
Edward Furlong plays the Crow. For our next episode, you are watching
No,
the
he
4th.
didn't. Are you serious?
I can't wait for you to look up this picture
he
of
fat Eddie Furlong.
Yeah, and he's still. I can't wait for you to see the cover of this movie.
How do you go from Brandon Lee to Eddie Furlong?
Oh, I don't know. You're gonna find out. It's the 4th. I think it's a standalone sequel. The Crow, Wicked Prayer. Jason, this had a 1-week theatrical release and then went direct to video. Which means our bottom 5 for this episode is going to be our bottom 5 direct to video titles. Titles. Now hold on here. There's a little bit of a caveat there because I imagine you and I haven't seen a ton of direct to video movies.
Yeah.
So I said direct to video titles. You are allowed here to scour all of the direct to video titles you can find. You know, if there's like a Tremors Part 6, This Time It's Worms. That's your title. Whatever it is, the dumbest direct-to-video titles that you can find.
So if I'm not going to review a movie, I can just lean on a title because it's terrible.
Yeah, because this is always the fun of these titles. Is like, because right now we have The Crow, Wicked Prayer.
Is it set in Boston?
Oh,
it's a Wicked Prayer.
Maybe it's got Tara Reid in it. Good fucking luck, buddy. I can't imagine how bad this. I honestly can't imagine how bad this is.
I'm looking forward to it. Honestly, I think this is going to be fun. I think this will be a lot of fun. This is the kind of bad that I need in my life right now.
Good.
So this is good. Yeah, this will be a good time. Tara Reid, probably Dennis Hopper, one of his last roles, and chunky Eddie Furlong.
Doughy. He's doughy.
Doughy. Oh, yeah. What is he doing? Why?
I've made you watching an Edward Furlong movie an annual tradition.
Oh, you bastard. So I guess I got to have Meryl Streep coming up soon for you.
Oh, yeah, I guess. Fair is fair.
You son of a bitch. All right. Well, on our next episode, I will be watching The Crow, Wicked Prayers. And we will be listing off our bottom 5 direct-to-video titles. But until then, we've been your hosts. I am Jay.
And I am Mike.
And we'll see you next time.
Mislim na te, hoću znat sve kate, vježbat ću sate i sate. Karate, karate, vježbat ću dok zadnji mi kjaj izostane izađe.
The best part of Cool as Ice was the commercials on Tubi. It was such a reprieve. I was like, thank God. Thank God I just have a moment of sanity back.